part by Brian's Toys. At brianstoys.com, you can find Star Wars toys and collectibles from 1977 to the present. Brian's Toys has it all, from vintage toys and action figures right up to the latest releases. And when checking out, be sure to say you were referred to Brian's Toys by Star Wars Action News. So go check out the world's largest selection of Star Wars toys at brianstoys.com.
Welcome to the Crystal Skull.
You're listening to Star Wars Action News, your source for Star Wars collecting news, reviews, and updates, helping Star Wars collectors collect better. Be sure to check out our website at swactionnews.com, where you can see photos of the items discussed, chat with other Star Wars Action News listeners, and much more, including information on how you can be part of the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Action News. I'm Marjorie.
I'm Arnie, and we are back. It seems like forever since we've recorded a show, but we've traveled all around the country since we've last been in the studio.
Yep, we went up and down the West Coast for a while, and we were out in Seattle for the 20th anniversary of the Sarlacc Collecting Group, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were invited to go up and join them. Marjorie, she moonlights on another podcast, you know.
I do, Star Wars Collecting Cosmos. And what we talk about there is the stuff that no one really likes, the kind of dirty little secrets in your collection. Of course, we talk about Jar Jar and things like that. We talk about the applause statues. You know, the things no one likes to admit happens. If you want to check me out while I talk with Amy and Ryan about all the fun collecting stuff, you can find us on Facebook.
But while we were up there, we got to see some great collections and just be completely blown away by some of the displays there. Of course, one of them was Gus Lopez's, and every time I go, I mean, there's just so much. I can't tell what's new and what's just... I was so oversaturated the last time I got a chance to look at it that this time I got to look again. And we took a friend of ours, Josh, who's not part of the group, on a toy run there to a couple of great stores. One we were supposed to go to during the ICE event last year, and we didn't get to go, and it's been nagging at me because Seattle, it's not some place you go through. If you're going to Seattle, you're going to Seattle. It's not like a layover city. And so I didn't think we'd get to go. It nagged at me for a year, and I'm like, this time we're going to that Star Wars shop in Aberdeen.
Yes, it's called Suture & Sons. I guess you could call it legendary, I'm not really sure, but this had been stuck in your craw.
But I was disappointed we didn't get to go because I'd heard such things about this store, and I just had in my mind almost a museum with price tags. I was told that there were vintage Cape Jawas. I was told that there was a double telescoping lightsaber. Now, I was also told that these items were possibly fakes, but that they were there and the seller either believed them to be real or was saying they were real, and I'd been told he was exceptionally overpriced. But still, it was just something that I wanted to see. And it's a long drive from Seattle, which is where all the events were, to Aberdeen. I didn't really realize, but 2 hours each way on the highway is quite a long time. It's the beach. Aberdeen has the highest per capita suicide rate in the country. It's where Kurt Cobain was born.
Yes, it is. And their city motto when you go in says, "Come as you are." And the Star Wars shop also doubled as a Kurt Cobain memorial site.
As well as a Ghostbusters gift shop and a Star Trek gift shop. So I'm imagining in my mind this neatly curated, and they say everything's overpriced, so I'm thinking high-end stuff.
But everything's half off, we are also told. Half off the high price to make it more reasonable.
But still overpriced. Multiple people had said they'd gone to this store with the intent of just buying something as a souvenir, and they still walked out empty-handed because they just couldn't find anything. And so I was expecting to go empty-handed, but I wanted to see these curious goods. So we drive there, and immediately I'm astonished. There are giant lightsabers out front. He took light posts and converted them into lightsabers. He's checking to see if this is the Guinness World Records of largest lightsabers.
Did anybody else try for it?
Well, a lot of the Guinness World Records aren't really in competition. It's not two people competed and one gets in the book. It's somebody does something crazy and gets in the book. And there is this Star Wars mural on the side that was really well painted. I thought it was cute. I thought it added flavor. And there were Star Wars mannequins out front. I'm like, those are really... Oh, wait. This was the moment I started to realize perhaps this might not be the high-end experience that I had been imagining.
No, once I walked up and realized that the Princess Leia statue outside was actually a mutilated store mannequin wearing winter gloves and boots, that perhaps this was not everything we thought it would be. The Chewbacca looked like a bath mat that somebody stapled onto a mannequin. It was truly awful and a little bit frightening outside.
So I walk in, and there's one man running the space, and he's a little bit older, and immediately this is not what I imagined. For some reason in my mind, I pictured like a high-end jewelry store with high ceilings, glass cases, carpet, low music in the background. It was a junk shop.
It was a little bit like an antique shop. There was crap everywhere, floor to ceiling, stapled onto the walls, put on the walls with gum.
It was overwhelming in the quantity of crap that was there. But it was mostly crap. Piles of crap. Not well-organized crap. Literally piled up. I'm like, if I wanted to see this, I could go to the unfinished portion of my basement.
Well, your stuff's in better arrangement down there and it's much more well kept. This is just stuff piled on top of stuff. It was like kind of going into a hoarder's house that only had Star Wars stuff. You couldn't get around in the shop. You couldn't make a circle. It was kind of like you had to go over here, then you had to turn around and go back over here. And at any time, you were going to find something that may scar you mentally.
Yes, he seemed to have a knack for the perverse and the unusual. The C-3PO misprinted Topps card, the error card with the...
Phallus.
Yes, thank you for that politically correct word. Well, he not only has that, he has replica card backs, so you can get this in all kinds of sizes, and he had Star Wars panties in a variety of colors and sizes. It was very strange, but mostly it was just piles of figures and books and magazines and all stuff mostly common. But imagine if all of eBay was just put into one small shop.
It just kind of thrown in there. And then a tornado came through and jumbled everything up, and then you added more stuff to it.
The prices were somewhat exorbitant. There was one thing I thought about getting, but bringing it home would be a pain. It was a Watto mannequin that they had from the Pepsi line back with episode 1 that I think he wanted $1,200 and some, but everything was half off. That's $600. That's actually a reasonable price.
And you didn't have to pay sales tax because we had a Star Wars shirt on.
Yes, that's a law in Aberdeen, I believe.
Yes. He also had a very large, disgustingly lifelike Pizza the Hut statue replica.
That was a little nauseating.
Oh my god, it was so gross. Ugh.
I think he had a thing out of free candy, and the whole place was so nauseating I couldn't imagine eating in it.
No, I wanted to take a bath in Purell after we were done there.
But you say all Star Wars, but I was very confused while I was in there that I heard Ghostbusters playing somewhere. Yeah, there's a pocket that's devoted to Kurt Cobain stuff. They call themselves the official Kurt Cobain Memorial, but I don't think there's anything official about it. And there was a Ghostbusters corner. There was a back room. I think the movie had just ended and the TV had gone to static, but I had that poltergeist-like feeling when I'm alone in this back room with a TV playing nothing but static and looking at some horribly abused Star Trek toys, and I'm just like, this is the room where the murder happened. I don't know that there was a murder, but that was what was going through my mind in this creepy back room alone with the staticky television. Now, driving back from this, Josh, Marjorie, and I were talking, the best part of this whole experience was the sheer disconnect between my expectations of the event and the actual event. If I knew now what you, dear listeners, know, that this is a total junk shop run by a crazy person with overpriced junk, then you will not have the experience I had. just the complete, I thought I was going to see, I don't know where a vinyl cape Jawa double telescoping lightsaber would be, but I felt so uncomfortable in the store I didn't want to ask either.
I don't know why you felt uncomfortable.
Just because the place was a little grimy and I wasn't planning on buying because I knew that they were probably repros. I figured if I can't find the most expensive items in the store, they are not properly showcased. I should not have to ask where the expensive stuff is. In the midst of magazines and record albums, none of which were in great condition. Don't imagine this as you're going to find stuff you can get AFA graded. This looks really just like a junk shop that bins could be completely knocked over and then just picked back up.
Well, he was selling a replica playset of the trash compactor scene. It was a box lid lined with aluminum foil with water poured in it, and then some just various ship parts thrown in with some action figures and some sort of slime. I'm not really sure what it was. It's kind of frightening, actually, and it kind of smelled musty and mildewy. So I'm really sorry if anybody actually bought this. And I think this is more of a store for maybe the uninitiated. If you aren't a super collector and you're like, hey, look, there's a Star Wars shop. Let's go, honey. The kids will love it. And you walk in and you're like, yeah, look, I can buy an Episode 1 action figure for only $20.
But it's half off, so it was 10.
Yes.
The only thing I got out of there, I didn't buy anything, but the only thing I got was he had 3 vintage Ewok playsets that he had put all together back to back, and it made a really cool Endor display. And I hadn't really thought about having multiple vintage Endor playsets and cluster them for a massive Endor village. That was a great idea. Everything else in there, I mean, like you talk about that trash compactor set, was that even really for sale?
Yes, it had a price tag on it.
Everything had a price tag, but was it really for sale, or was it, it's trash? I can't even tell what's joke.
I did buy something, though.
Of course you did.
I bought a Jar Jar calendar. It was one of the little tiny, like, 5x5 calendars, all Jar Jar. So I was pretty excited. It cost me a whole $1, and I didn't have to pay sales tax, but it has a Star Wars shirt on.
In addition, I didn't get out of there, though, without leaving a piece of myself behind. He had a entire mural, or not mural, collage.
Future victim list.
Anyone who came in with a Star Wars tattoo had their photo taken, and he oohed and ahed over Marjorie's R2, and then saw my Mando skull, and I got that photograph, but I just wanted out of there at that point, and so I didn't even point out that I had 2 more visible Star Wars tattoos. I just was like, yep, that's it. Thank you. Bye. We also went to Lynn's Toy Stable, though, and that is always a great time. It's under new management now, though, so I have to say the experience of going was drastically different.
Well, they rearranged the whole store, which was traumatic alone. I mean, let's face it, I don't like things that are different.
This was only our 4th time going over the span of 3 years, but yet I was very familiar with its previous layout. I knew exactly where all the toys were, all the Star Wars stuff was up front in this alcove. The way they rearranged it, it felt smaller. Maybe because it was more efficient and so I didn't have to go down 5 different alcoves to look for toys. I also think, my understanding is they have a outbuilding with a lot of stuff in it. I think they've taken away a lot of their stuff that they had there, and that they've really refined what they've got. They're going through it, bringing it out, but it just felt like they had less than I was used to.
Yeah, they didn't have as much of the fun stuff. I mean, when we've gone before, we even ended up buying a ton of Marvel and Star Wars. And this time, we did find some items to buy, and they put out a special table of Star Wars stuff because we were there with Sarlacc, so they brought stuff out of storage for us, and that was kind of cool because you made a really big purchase.
I did. Of the original vintage Star Wars figures, not counting droids and Ewoks, I am missing 5 figures from having a complete loose collection of figures and weapons, and I picked those up. I talked about it on a show quite a while back. This isn't even counting the toys I had as a kid, because those are in played with condition. These are collectible loose figures, and ironically, one of the 5 I'm missing was Han and Carbonite, which as a character focus you'd think I would have, but it just didn't come in that lot, and it's a very expensive loose figure. I have the Han, I just didn't have the Carbonite, and they had one there in amazing condition, and I talked the guy down, and I ended up getting it for about $20 less than the eBay minimum bids going for. So I felt like, my thing with vintage is I don't buy it a lot unless I'm getting a price that's better than average, because otherwise, why would I have to spend that money today? I can get it at that price anytime. So to get this figure, which is one that means a lot to me, it honestly means more than Yak Face. I mean, Yak Face is hard to get, but I have no connection to Yak Face. I have a connection to Han and Carbonite because it traumatized the hell out of me as a kid. And so to get that figure loose, now I'm down to 4 figures I need, and all of them, of course, Power of the Force figures, but I was able to check that off my list.
They did have a life-size Jar Jar, but I don't have a really good way of getting it home. It wasn't a bad price. It was like $1,000.
Yeah, it's not a great price either.
No, but I had no way to get him home. He's not exactly carry-on size.
Yeah, it's a lot of the Sarlacc members were just giving you their Jar Jar stuff, like this bendy straw that I thought looked like Miley Cyrus and Wrecking Ball, and
That would be Jake, yes.
but it was a great time being up in Seattle. We, of course, weren't there as long as we'd like to be. We ended up having to leave on Sunday. We went down. I celebrated my birthday in Las Vegas.
It was a lot of fun. Could not find a Star Wars slot machine to save our life. When we were in Vegas a few years ago in the airport, they had them in the airport, but I couldn't find them in the casinos. They weren't in the airport this year.
I think they've replaced them with Iron Man slot machines.
I think so. That was a lot of fun.
But coming back, I couldn't believe it. It was Christmas.
It's been Christmas for a while.
I was at Toys R Us. They had